Well, this is a video that I'm terrified to make, and I've been waiting around for quite a long time to make. Basically, quite some time ago, I started custom binding my Usagi Yojimbo sagas. I only got to one edition of the saga collection, which I might as well show it to you now. This one, because it's quite a costly thing, and I did number one because number one was hard to get in hardback, but then I ended up getting the hardcovers anyway. But then I got freaked out at the cost of them and couldn't find a time to read them comfortably because they were like getting ridiculously expensive, so I went back to paperbacks. But that's another story altogether. This started me off on the process of understanding the ins and outs of custom binding and getting trade paperbacks or individual issues and then wrapping a cover around them. Hardback covers normally you can custom bind in paperback as well, but not many people do it. But that then led me, because I found it hard, if not impossible, to get a good quality version of the hardcovers of the IDW series because they were available in America. In my head, the paperbacks weren't good enough, so I thought, I'll just do it myself. I know what I'm doing. And so I ended up doing the first 19 issues plus free comic book day in hardback edition. Custom bound hardback. And what I did was I was inspired by the movie poster from Yojimbo, the movie, and based the cover around that and did some fan art and some other things. And yeah, this was all done, individual issues, custom bound, and I did that. And the idea was, in my head, is when the IDW finishes their run, I would then collect the rest. But that finished quite short, and they finished in issue 31, so it ended up not being like a full book really. So I added a couple of other trade paperbacks, which I'll talk about in a bit now. But then when I was planning on custom binding the second lot of Usagi Yojimbo issues from IDW, I thought, well, posters and packaging is quite hefty, I might as well custom bind something else to kind of make it more bang for my buck in terms of posters and packaging and the whole deal. And then I looked at my collection, and the only things that really stood out to custom bind was the Attack on Titan Colossal editions, a series that I'd absolutely fallen in love with. And so I spent a few months designing covers for the 7 Colossal editions, as well as the second lot of IDW issues. And that's what's in this box. If you wanted an in-depth, detailed kind of look into custom binding, I did do 3 videos looking at me custom binding this. I'll leave a link somewhere for that in the description or above or wherever. But certainly that is going to go more in depth than I probably will get the opportunity to here. But I will talk about my thought process and all that. But enough of that. Let's open this and get to it. If you have read Attack on Titan and you haven't read Usagi Yojimbo, this is a video that's enticing you into the world of Usagi Yojimbo. If you've read Usagi Yojimbo and haven't read Attack on Titan, this video will entice you into that world. But either way, it's a terrifying process, it's an expensive process, it's a time-consuming process. Cost-wise, it'll be different no matter where you go, no matter what you do, to be honest. But either way, it gives me anxiety doing it, to be frank, because ultimately you're giving these books over, you're giving directions, but mistakes can be made, transport can be messed up, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's loads of factors that may or may not happen, but all of them happen going through your head. I have the covers here for the trade paperbacks that I had bound, so that's good because these weren't included in the bind because I didn't want them included in the bind. And now, the big reveal. This one feels weighty, so I'm guessing this one may well be the Usagi Yojimbo one. I'm not sure though. It is, I can tell by the colour. Oh, terrifying. Oh. Wow. Usagi Yojimbo, Ukaji and Other Stories. This is collecting issues 20 to 31 of Usagi Yojimbo, the IDW series. I think it's kind of loosely termed volume 4, maybe, that iteration. But it also, because there was so much space left over in the bind, I decided to put in the 3 coloured origin Usagi. So volume 1, 2 and 3 of the trade paperbacks of the origin series. That essentially is the samurai stories really, and the Wanderers Road series and the Dragon Bello. There is a fourth, but I wanted Dragon Bello to be at the end because it's a nice end. What I did for the cover, by the way, is I got some Stan Sakai art and then did my own version of the art. So the fan art, essentially, that you see on the cover is me. I did an image of Usagi on the front and Ukichi on the back. I hope I'm pronouncing that kind of right. And then I did a little blurb myself, and then there's a faded out background of the pair walking along. And inside, then, we hopefully have got the, as planned, we've got the issues of Usagi Yojimbo, volume 4 or whatever it might be. And that takes us through to the end of the comics. The comics basically then go right the way into the samurai, so the trade paperbacks are this chunk, and then the individual comics are this chunk. But as you can see, they don't stand out terribly. I've never ever seen a binding job like this, actually. The way the sewn binding is like almost like crisscross hatching. It is sewn binding, but it's very unique, very different binding than I've seen previous. That's really interesting. I wonder why they made that decision. Either way, I really don't mind how it's bound as long as it's kind of sewn bound, which it is. But yeah, I've never seen sewn binding like that before. That's really interesting. But this is absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy this turned out right. Now well, on to the others now. Terrified. Absolutely petrified. If that one turned out alright, though, the rest of them should be fine. Because I kind of like... Oh, look. Did turn out alright. I think off slightly, I think top to bottom, this cover. I think this cover has been off slightly from top to bottom. Believe me, check the rest first. I think there might have been a bit of an issue with putting the cover on there because it looks awful close to the bottom from what I sent through. This one, but yeah, if they're all kind of uniform in that way, then there's not a massive issue, to be honest. They're all looking good thus far. They're all okay. I'll get to them. Yeah, they're all looking good. They're all looking good. I wonder if the binding is the same on it. Yes, yeah, the binding is the same. This kind of crisscrossy binding. Like I say, I haven't seen that before at all. These are looking pretty good, pretty good. The good thing about this, as long as I'm happy, everyone's happy, because I'm not going to sell these or sell them onto a new kind of seller or another or a third market or anything like that. They just forever going to kind of stay on my shelves, really, because they are, you know, you can't really sell these on in any way, shape or form. They are basically mine forever, really, and pass on to my family or whatever. There's 7 of them, and I will get to all of that now in a second. Okay, let's do them in order then, is it? So, number 1, Attack on Titan. I wanted the covers to basically have the Attack on Titan on the front and then the characters. So Attack on Titan kind of has got 3 main characters, really, as far as I can see. The Eren, Mikasa and Armin. But then I loved when I was reading the series how those 3 are kind of mirrored with an opposing pair, with an opposing trio rather, and that is Annie, Bertolt and Reiner. And so I wanted those 6 to feature on a cover each, but then to split them up I wanted to get Levi in. So that was the thinking behind the cover design, really. And then so the fronts I got off like a Deviant art page, the character designs, and then the rest is obviously the interior art from Attack on Titan. I gotta check they're all the right way around as well, because manga, you know. Yeah, they're all the right way around, perfect. So that's volume 1. Volume 2 with Armin on it. Then Mikasa with her swords out, looking amazing. And Levi on volume 4, sorry, with the Beast Titan on the back. Then we go into Reiner on volume 5. And that's a lovely one, that is, I think. Covers come out really nice on that, the colour has. Then Bertolt on volume 6 with a picture of Eren as the Attack Titan on the back. And then volume 7, we got Annie, and on the back, the kind of the rumbling as we know it in Attack on Titan world. They're all really, to be fair, the cover issues, it's always one of those things, because I'm an amateur doing it and designing my own cover, you can pay for your own cover to do it. But how I did it is I used an online resource called Canva. I kind of laid out the page in the dimensions that the binder give in terms of the bleed, where the center is, all that type of thing, and then sent them across. And then basically they then put them on. But I will say I am a complete amateur when it comes to this. So obviously there's going to be a few mistakes, and sometimes that mistakes are mine. Sometimes that mistake is the printer, the bindery. But again, it is one of those things that when you do it, don't have it in your mind that it's going to be 100% perfect every time. And there is room for negotiation, there is room for mistakes, and you can obviously have a chat with your bindery, send them back and things like that. I'm going to have a closer look at these when I'm not on camera and make a decision whether or not to have a chat to them and send them back, you know, to realign some of the covers and stuff like that. But in terms of the cover designs, they've come out exactly pretty much, apart from some of the centering, as I wanted. But the work on the binding and the colour-coded ribbons, as well as the colour-coded headbands, is stunning. The sewn binding is great. Honestly, a really solid job, to be honest. But the process is one of those things, you kind of just got to take assets from different sites, have an idea of the cover design, but certainly the most important part is using kind of guidelines and using borders and rulers to actually specifically place things that the bindery tells you, look, these have to go here. Outside of that, depending on the bindery, they do everything else for you. You send your books off, they will appraise them, they will tell you how much the job will cost, whether they can do it, because obviously there's a limit on thickness for most binderies. And then once they give you the details on what they can and can't do and what dimensions the hardback should be, because it isn't just a case as well of giving them the hardback and then you designing a hardback that's the exact same size, because obviously it's bigger and they may have to trim the individual issues to actually get the height right and get the bind right. So ultimately, listen to their directions and then base your designs around there. But that doesn't stop you from coming up with a basic design template way before that point. What I do is I kind of just get a page that's loosely based on the size of this, size you book originally, and then just lay it out, knowing that I will have to transfer that into a different template with the dimensions that the bindery gets me. Costs is pointless me telling you really, because it's going to be different where you are in the world, what jobs you want, how much you're doing, postage and packaging, all this type of thing factors massively into it. But ultimately, it is a costly thing. It'll cost you anywhere between, I'd say, between 30 and 40, maybe more pounds to get one done. And then postage and packaging both ways. So it isn't a cheap thing, but certainly if you're a fan of a series and if you were eager to kind of preserve a book because you're going to reread it, or you've got a comic collection that you want to preserve, it's a great way of doing that, I think. And it's, for me, it's a very fun way of kind of being creative as well, because I enjoy doing the designs. It gives me a heart attack waiting around to make sure that they're all right, but ultimately I do enjoy the design aspect of it all. And these were loads of fun to design, to be honest, as well as the Usagi one, because I drew that as well as put it together and stuff like that. Well, I hope you enjoyed having a look at these custom binds anyway. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.